Gentlemen, you're 86. Apparently you can be in the same room. Are you surprised at any of that?
That we're 86? Yeah, pretty surprised. I mean, that's pretty good longevity, I think.
Well, I think that it's just good, and I'm very proud to have Bob. Even though whatever people think is antagonistic, I wouldn't know how good I am if I didn't have Bob as an antagonist and a protagonist, you know what I mean? Either way, whatever you play. So he's this super stupendous guy, you know what I mean? And that gives me an opportunity to be extraordinary, you know what I mean? When working and competing with him and working with him and trying to start to think in ahead of him, you know what I mean? It's very difficult.
Did you need him?
Absolutely.
I needed Don.
Absolutely, there's no question.
It was great, you know, without competition and without interesting competition, people lose interest.
That is certainly true.
You guys weren't interesting, you were ruthless.
Yeah,
well, but that made it better.
Good. Because it's authentic. It wasn't like it was something made up and played up like, you know, you're premeditated, you know, and planning and something that you can deal with, you know what I mean? We get what you see is what you get.
As I saw it, Don brought an element to promotion that we had never seen, at least in the time frame that I was aware of. Promoters at that point were laid-back guys who arranged for fights and worried about getting the money to pay the fighters, and they were not as flamboyant as Don King. And when Don King came into the business as a promoter, it was something completely different and unique from whatever we had seen before.
And it was also, you guys were both tethered to the legendary presence of Muhammad Ali. He brought you guys both into the game.
That is correct.
And he drove you apart.
Well, he didn't drive us apart.
No, he didn't drive us apart.
But we were all looking to, when Don came in, who would be promoting most of Ali's fights. And Don had an advantage about the fact that he was in the area where black people were fighting for rights and recognition, that he was, like Ali, black.
There's one point in which you go to meet Herbert Muhammad, Ali's manager, in a room, with Teddy Brenner, your matchmaker.
Let me tell the story.
Go ahead.
All right. I had bought Herbert an apartment in New York on Central Park South when apartments were affordable. And I went up with Teddy Brenner, who was working for Madison Square Garden then. And we tried to convince Herbert to have Ali fight Jerry Quarry for the second time. And I heard something in the bathroom, and it was King there. He was, you remember, he was
yes.
You were in the apartment.
Yes.
You were hiding out.
Yes,
Yeah.
And
And then Herbert, who I was very close with, said, this guy is offering Ali $5.5 million to fight. And I said, okay, how much is he going to give you up front? And Herbert said, $500,000, remember? And I said, Herbert, you got to take it. You got to take it. You grab the 500 and he'll default on the rest.
What it is I was dealing, and I understand CASH, cash. So I had the money, you know, Herbert had the 500 in cash. And I go, what he told Herbert, you know, that made it easier for Herbert because he was being honest with Herbert. That's what makes him different from the rest of the guys.
So cash made it easier.
But nobody else, but he couldn't, that cash was going to do it regardless whether he was honest or not. They gave him cash.
That was a disadvantage for me, because as somebody from Harvard Law School, I wasn't in the numbers business.
Yeah, I was a numbers.
You couldn't.
And cash made it easier for the nation to trust you.
No, for anybody to trust.
Anybody. You don't care what
This
happened to
fight,
you.
you could offer a fighter $5 million, or you could give him $500,000 in cash, and he would grab the cash.
It's just like anybody would do.
You also settled a lawsuit with Ali with cash.
Yes. Well, always, you know, but because he didn't know. He didn't know that me and Herbert was together, and I got that thing there, you know, so I just gave him that, you know what I mean, just to get him to be able to sign it off. But I already had the papers And I told him, I said, I didn't do what you think I did, you know what I mean? So
Ali was suing you after the Burbank
yeah,
fight.
he thought I'd beat him out of $1 million.
$1 million. And you gave him what, 15 cash?
Yeah, but I also gave him the evidence that it wasn't there. And he had to go back and ask Herbert, did it? And then Herbert said, yeah, I was just holding the judge. But Herbert told me he was blocking everything I tried to do. Herbert wanted to be with him.
So we have now resolved that cash is king.
Yes.
And Herbert wanted to be with Bob.
Yeah, we blocked, but he couldn't get over that thing with me and Muhammad Ali. Because Ali knows that when they put him in exile, I used to have drawers full of money. And so Ali would come to my house, and I would say, I said, be the cream. You say, you can't turn your hand over. You got to, whatever you can pick up out of that's yours. And he would go to that drawer, and he'd see all that money, and his eyes would get bigger than his stomach, you know what I mean? He'd grab it, and he would get, one time he got $35,000, one time he got $25,000. Most of the time it'd be $10,000, $15,000, because the money would fall out of his hand. Bloop, 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 the card, you couldn't hold it.
So we each had our own strengths. That was really the truth. I couldn't ever compete with him with the flamboyance and with the putting hands. I mean, there's nothing illegal about it. Putting hands in a drawer and pulling out cash. I mean, that wasn't in my psyche.
Let me ask about what he said is the finest night of his career, and that would be De La Hoya Trinidad. What about the aftermath of that fight?
Well,
Let him tell you, and I'm going to tell you. Go and tell him what he wants to say.
That was a great promotion. And Don and I worked hard on the promotion, and we made a lot of money. And I thought De La Hoya won the fight easy, and the decision went against him. So
Trinidad is his fighter.
Trinidad's his fighter. So now we have the press conference, and he doesn't stop.
Killing him.
He's bellowing.
Pull the plug on me, man. It was such a shock. Nobody believed that Trinidad was going to win, but me.
But the winner of the fight is Tito Trinidad. Viva Puerto Rico! Viva Puerto Rico! Arriba!
Whatever he told them, they all went in there and they pulled the plug. Censorship right there, Freedom of, First Amendment rights gone. Forget about that freedom of speech.
I wasn't looking at the First Amendment.
I know that's
The Second
anger,
Amendment.
that emotion and that passion.
If I was thinking about amendments, Second Amendment, I would add an automatic rifle.
Yeah, see what I mean? That's what I'm telling you. Let's be honest. You see what I'm telling you, man? It's his way or the
Call the
highway.
feds.
That means I'm telling you, don't know what he's going to say. Now, this ain't what it means. If it's his way, he's going to mow you down. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Because I understand. That's what I know.
In the late 80s, you get a call from the feds.
Yeah. Remember that?
Tell me about that.
Yeah, I got a call from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Don, they had him up on charges of
Being investigated by the Southern District.
for some tax thing. And the assistant U.S. attorney calls me up, and they knew I had served in that office. And they said to me, Bob, I have to tell you that we have received information that death threats have been made against you and you're in imminent bodily harm. So I said, well, who made the threats? We're not allowed to tell you. I said, what the hell are you calling me up for? So finally, I, by process of elimination, said it must be Don King. So I had this guy working for me, Akbar Muhammad, and he got a hold of this lawyer in New Jersey who had represented mob guys, that he went down to Florida and he talked with the people. And the message is that if I step off the street and a bus hits me, Don King doesn't live for 30 minutes.
The people being
But
the people being
that's what the lawyer said.
the mob.
The lawyer said. And so about an hour later, Don calls me. Remember? Ha, 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 I would never do any harm to you. That's the story. So a lot of it is hearsay. What I'm saying is absolutely truth.
Well, listen,
Would you ever take a contract out on him?
No. What for? You know what I mean? If I want to do something to him, I do it myself.
I want to know, because now we're sitting around talking, if any mob guy called you after Norman said that he talked to them. It's the truth.
I got calls from the mob, but not about what Norman told me.
Well, what
who
about
to hit.
me?
No. With you, they didn't say anything about
So
that.
how come you called me an hour later?
They told me, because the word is all out, you know what I mean? There's no secrets in this game, that's number one. And everybody was out there talking because expletives going back, accusations, allegations. You know what I mean? I said, no, man, I ain't no do nothing to you. You know what I mean? Because what it is, self-defense.
So the answer is they called him.
Yeah, it's self-defense.
Somebody called it.
Yeah.
Yeah, self-defense, and you don't get nothing.
One fight that was never a mismatch. Bob Arum, Don King, thank you both very, very much.
Mark, a pleasure.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be on ESPN.